Recording in progress.
It's the Town of Bourne Board of Health meeting on October 9th, 2024. And we also are on Zoom this evening, if anybody's here on that. The Zoom chat will not be monitored. Participants who wish to speak must raise the hand icon until the chair asks them to unmute. Note, this meeting is being televised and recorded by Bourne Community TV for replay. If anyone in the audience is also recording or videotaping, they need to acknowledge such at this time. All items within the meeting agenda are subject to deliberation and votes by the Board of Health. If anyone from the public wishes to access the meeting remotely, they can do so by clicking the Zoom link or by calling the following conference line on their phone and using the Zoom meeting ID and password below. The dial-in number is 1-309-205-3325. Meeting ID is 315-403-5336. The password is 02532. So we'll call this meeting to order. Take attendance. Margaret Reale.
Here.
Dusty Meyer.
Here.
Barbara Princiotti.
Here.
Miguel is absent. And Bob Collette here. So, second item on the agenda, 1 Monument Ave, Zach Bazinski, Bracken Engineering. Approach, please.
For the record, Zach Basinski, professional engineer, Bracken Engineering, here this evening on behalf of the Mansons who are in the audience. This is 1 Monument Ave down in Monument Beach. Got to be one of the toughest and smallest lots I've worked on in my 16 years in the town. So we've got about 2,100 square feet of lot area. Old house built back in the 1800s. This project we've been working on for close to 2 years now. So after we did the survey, figured out the small sizes, we've gone through a lot of design iterations on this project, spoke with a lot of contractors from a means and methods and how to build it, and then we actually went through the town manager's office to talk about a license and an easement, and we were granted that through town meeting on this. So just to give you a little recap, when you come around the bend down to Monument Beach, go over the train tracks, this is the first house on the left-hand side. Historically, when you look at the site pictures out here, it seems like there's more area than there really is. The town right-of-way layout comes through the lawn area in the front of the property near the fence right through here. So initially, when we took on the project and the survey, we thought we had room to install a septic on this lot, and was not a lot there after the survey was done. We initially looked at different iterations of construction and everything with the decks, the porches. The cost of it prevented us from doing anything else on that historic and led us down to where we are. So again, as mentioned, easement was granted through the town. They granted us a 262 square foot easement to put the system right in the front yard against Worcester Ave. Through there. Currently it's serviced by an old cesspool with an overflow trench that goes into the right-of-way. So after speaking with the town, we're going to replace the cesspool with a microfast system and then bring in a concrete galley system and build that right in the right-of-way and on the lot from there. Variances are all called off on the plan. I can run through them all if you need to, or if you have any specific questions, I can answer all of them. We are asking for a reduction in overall size of the field to fit it on the lot. That's approvable under local upgrade approval. We do have a denitrification system going in on the property. It takes us from 23 parts per million down to 13. So just shy of a 50% reduction, which will have a great improvement in the area. We have spoken with DPW and Ms. Shea about doing a pre-construction meeting prior to all this going in. This is the type of project that we'd have to build in phases. So we'd have to go out, put the tank in, backfill, and then make our way in down to each chamber and take it out, fill it back in to protect the house, the road, and all the interests out there in the area. With that, I will turn it back over.
Yeah. Thank you, Zach. Questions from the board?
I'd like to hear what Caitlin has to say. I
Kate?
just have a couple questions.
Yeah. So as Zach said, really tough lot. This is our best option that we could come up with, which is why we went through the whole easement process with town meeting. He is asking for that reduction of leaching capacity for up to 50% with the approval from DEP standards conditions for secondary treatment forms. So that's why the leaching field looks a little bit smaller than for a regular 2-bedroom, 4-bedroom dwelling, but that is approvable under DEP standards. The home is 4 bedrooms per floor plans that were provided, and also a walkthrough I did back in 2022. There's no proposed work on the house. The house is also within that Phineas Harbor watershed area. So if there is no proposed work to increase habitable space or bedroom space, but if down, then there's no room to do so. But if that ever did happen, it would trigger a whole new septic upgrade anyway, so. Best option, and my only question I think Zach answered with Stacy today was that they're asking for a variance from the setback to the foundation from the leach field, so I would just want to see a polyliner between that. But.
Okay. So that's the best option available?
Yeah, we explored possibly a tight tank, but even still, there's not a lot of space, and then a butter is the railroad. So it's blocking that area for traffic for regular pump outs is also a concern, so.
Great.
Quick question.
Questions from the board?
Yes, is this a year-round house?
Yes, it is.
Oh, boy.
Oh, that's what I was
What's the
gonna ask.
nitrogen numbers?
So it went from 23 parts down to 13.
So we like 9 and you're 13.
Maybe like 5.
It's better than what they had.
Yeah.
I agree. Now, what are you gonna do to protect the roadway?
So that's the means and methods, why we have the system as close as possible to the street. And then based on the soil conditions, the contractor is going to come in and dig out one system at a time and put the chamber in, stone, and backfill. We're not going to have a large opening, and we're going to use shoring boxes to get the system in. Yep.
Okay, because I've been in this unfortunate condition down in Falmouth Heights, and we pretty much almost lost the road. That's why I'm very concerned about this. Sandy conditions on a perk test, what do you got?
Yep, sandy conditions with that, and that,
Which is what I didn't want to see in
I
this
know.
particular instance. But that's life. For drainage-wise, it's much better, but for in this instance, it's scary. Really, looking at the whole thing, born and raised over on that side, I know the house very well. There's nowhere you can go. So this is the better of many evils, as far as I'm concerned. And anything near the water, we want to improve, and this will help us. So it's up to the board, because other than that, what are you gonna do, a tight tank?
Didn't you say you already looked
Yeah,
at that?
not the best option.
Yeah.
No, not at all, because you got, it's
Yeah.
four rooms, 4 bedrooms, year-round home. Might as well park the truck there and keep pumping
Keep
every
it there,
day.
yeah.
yeah, and we looked at that from just a public safety issue with the rest of the neighborhood, fire access. This is the only road in to the rest of the neighborhoods.
They're all little
We're all little
roads.
neighborhoods. We also reached out to the railroad company next door to see if we could get an easement, and we've never heard back, and I don't think I ever will.
Probably not.
Strange, huh?
Oh, strange.
They're bringing me coffee. I'm still waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's it for me.
I have a couple of questions.
Barbara?
Zach,
Yep.
I'm not familiar, like, with down there. Do you think I can just see the
Yeah.
pictures? The photo, not, yeah. Oh, yeah, because it looks like it's very well maintained. So was that remodeled recently, or like?
No, just the steps were
Oh, all right.
fixed on that, so they actually all have to come off to build the system and.
Oh,
we'll go
okay.
through that, yeah.
And
Just
then,
resurfaced.
have they lived there a while?
Yes, the Mansons have been here for a few years now.
Oh, okay.
2 years, yep.
And then, can I just see like the little, that other, that was nice, the other thing, yeah. So they're, okay, they're right here? Oh, yeah, that's
Yes, when you
tiny,
first come in,
okay.
you're right on the corner.
All
We initially
right.
looked at exploring something over here, but there's a huge drainage field that the town has in the park.
Oh, that's the town,
Yeah.
okay.
Just a park.
All right. I don't know Margaret, if Margaret wants, I don't know where she is, but, and then I just have a couple questions on the note stack, that's it. And one of them's for you, Katie. Like, 4 says no field modification made without written approval of the design engineer and Board of Health. Do you anticipate any modifications?
No, I mean,
Okay.
that's
Some,
just a standard note.
oh, all right.
Really for the contractor not to wing anything in the field on me.
Yeah, like I said, I just don't want to put Katie on the spot on that, you know, because it does say Board of Health, so I just didn't know. I just wanted to make sure you didn't need anything. And then the only other questions I have, Zach, is on 17, 18, and 19. Has the map not been updated down there? Or it says 2014? Maybe you could just, don't we have a?
The flood zone maps, they're still running on the 14.
Oh, okay, down there they are, okay.
Yep.
And then, I wasn't sure, it says existing building sewers, that's,
It's just one sewer line coming out through the side there.
okay,
Yeah.
all right, I just wasn't sure on that. And then, you'll just, okay, those are my only questions. So it doesn't look like there's really, I agree, much option, and it does reduce it down.
Zach, are they what are they gonna do for, they gonna put poly lining in against the roadway and around the circumference? or-
Everything up against the foundation system on the foundation side. We don't need to do anything on the roadway side with it. So it'll just be on the inside up against the building around
Correct.
the system.
Is that a slab foundation?
No, it's a old block foundation system, so.
And then Katie, do you want to inspect that before it's filled in with the polyline?
So yeah, so they'd call me for each step on that one, I would assume.
Yeah, so we're gonna do a pre-construction meeting with staff, with the DPW, the contractor ahead of time, talk about the concerns about protecting the roadway, all that. Contractor's even looking into the railroad schedule, so we have an understanding when they're coming by, so we don't have any major holes open, any vibratory things going on. I mean, we put a lot of thought into just the means and methods how to build this, and then get a contractor on board before even presenting this to everybody, so. Feel very confident with the design and the install.
No, they're in a hard predicament here, and I totally agree, but
Hmm.
this is the only way you can go. It's the only way you can go.
Yep.
And you didn't spend 10 minutes on this.
No. It's kept me up at night a few nights thinking about it.
I see you're short a few hairs.
Yes, a few.
Okay. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll take the short straw on this one.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve 1 Monument Ave, requesting a waiver from the Bourne Board of Health regulations and 310 CMR. So requesting the following local upgrade approval waivers and variances. An 8-foot local upgrade approval waiver from full compliance for a 2-foot setback from a property line, and that's railroad ROW. From full compliance for a 0-foot setback from a property line, which is Worcester Avenue, to a proposed septic tank. A 10-foot local upgrade for a 0-foot setback from a property line, that's Worcester Ave also, to a proposed soil absorption system. A 6-foot local upgrade waiver for a 4-foot setback from a foundation wall, and that's at 1 Monument Ave, to a soil absorption system. A 6-foot local upgrade for a 4-foot setback from a foundation wall at 1 Monument Ave to a septic tank. A 2.3-foot local upgrade for a 5.3-foot of cover over soil absorption system. A 1-foot local upgrade for a 4-foot separation from groundwater. And then also a request is made under Section 2, Paragraph 5A of the Standard Conditions for Secondary Treatment Units approved for remedial use for a 50% reduction in SAS size. And as well, just with the stipulation that the polyliner will be against the foundation wall. You know, Katie will review that before it's filled. Did I miss anything?
Second?
Margaret?
Aye.
Bob, aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Approved. Thank you, Zach. I have orders to say hello to you from my wife, too.
Yes.
All right, next agenda item is 141 Williams Ave. Update on the noncompliance with orders to correct the dated March 15th, 2024 violations of the state sanitary code 150 CMR 410. Katie?
Yeah, sure. Just to give you guys a little background, a little refresher on what's been going on. Back in March 14th, Dion, our inspector, conducted an inspection of the property at 141 Williams and found violations of the housing code. The following day, on the 15th, he sent out orders to correct to the owner and the occupant. On July 24th, the Board of Health had a hearing for noncompliance with orders to correct. The board voted to have the building commissioner go out to the property for his professional opinion regarding possibly deeming the dwelling unfit for human habitation related to the secondary egress of the back of the house. On the 29th of July, we had an emergency Board of Health meeting to discuss noncompliance, at which time we discussed that the building commissioner had found that based off of the building code at the time of construction of that home, the back deck doorway was not the only egress at the back of the home, and that the code at the time would have considered the bedroom window at the back of the home to be a means of egress as well. For that reason, the board did not vote to deem the dwelling unfit for human habitation due to lack of a second egress. At that meeting, the board voted to have the homeowner pull permits to replace the deck within 48 hours, start work within 2 weeks, and complete the work within 30 days. On August 7th, the homeowner had not complied with that decision by the Board of Health. The chair discussed with town council and asked him to start legal conversations with the homeowner and her counsel. Brian Bertram from Harrington Heath Town Council is here also to discuss with the board an update from his end as well.
Mr. Bertram?
Gonna make sure my video is working. Good evening. So yes, following that conversation, we actually sent a letter, and we've had several conversations with the landlord's attorney. We've made clear that there do need to be corrections. As I understand it, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, you know, from the initial order that had numerous violations, I think we're down to sort of 4 lingering issues. The first one being the bedroom ceiling, that's sort of stains bleeding through coats of paint that need to be repaired. We have a basement door that is still leaking. We have some HVAC work that needs to occur, which is improperly secured ductwork, and there needs to be a better wall seal after a flue pipe was removed. And then finally, we have the issue of the deck, which, as just described to you, is not, as we understand it, to be a building code violation. To the extent, you know, we're concerned about it with the sanitary code, it's as a safety problem. If somebody goes out onto that deteriorating deck, they could be injured or worse. And so what we communicated to the landlord is even if it's not replaced immediately, at minimum it needs to be secured so that we can be comfortable that no one is going to be on that deck. So we've had those conversations. What we have been told at present and what we are trying to verify is that there have been attempts made to address these issues, that contractors have gone out to the house and that they've been denied access. So as last we left the conversation coming in tonight, sort of told them that the board is probably going to need at least 2 things. And the first is sort of documentation or some kind of evidence that there have in fact been efforts to send contractors to the property and that either, meetings, appointments have been canceled, they've been denied access, basically so that the board can assess whether there are good faith efforts being made to comply with the order, but that the tenant's not allowing those repairs to occur. And second, to the extent that there have been scheduling issues, we suggested that it might behoove the landlord to come into the board's hearing with a date that they can get the contractors out there. And if the tenant's here, then we should all be able to agree on a date to get these things fixed. And if that does not in fact occur, then we will certainly know who is at fault at that point. But really, we've got a couple of things that may be going on. We may have a landlord who's not making good faith efforts or is not following up as much as they should be to try to fix these problems. We may have a tenant who's canceling appointments, is denying access, and frankly, both of these things may be true, given the length of time that this has gone on. And so, you know, the enforcement tools available to the board are really, there's two of them. You know, I think that the board was wise not to deem this as unfit for human habitation, given the nature of the problems. But, you know, we can certainly go to court to get a court enforcement order and try to go that route. So I understand that you've also been assessing fines, and we can try to collect on those fines, but, you know, with fines, they're more punitive in nature. You know, even if you assess or collect on a fine, it doesn't necessarily mean that the underlying violation has been fixed. So that's sort of where we're at. I can't see into the room, but I certainly hope that the landlord has an attorney or some form of representative present that can address some of this, and hopefully, you know, if their claims are true about not being given access to the property, can give us some more information on that so that we can better evaluate sort of where we stand.
Thank you. Do we have representation from the landlord here, sir? Please come to the podium, state your name and...
Good evening. My name is Christopher Vieira. I'm an attorney with the law firm Dunning Crane, McNichols and Garner in Mashpee. I represent Paula Hoffman, who is the owner of the subject premises at 141 Williams. I don't believe that I've ever actually directly spoken with, is it Brian?
Yes.
Yeah, it's Brian. I think
Right.
you've spoken with
I've spoken
my colleague.
Tony. I've been in conversations with Attorney Riley. The first conversation that I did have with Attorney Riley was back in August, where he reached out to me and wanted to get kind of a status of what was going on. And it was at that point that I had mentioned to Attorney Riley that the circumstances go back a little bit further in the respect that in January earlier of this year, the current occupant, the tenant, was served with a notice to quit on the basis of she was a tenant at will, and further, she wasn't paying the rent, or she wasn't paying the proper amount of rent. Evidently, the tenant is here.
Please don't speak while he's speaking.
And nevertheless, I mean, there was a legitimate basis for an eviction. The tenant did have counsel. Unfortunately, they were able to get the first attempt of the eviction dismissed on a technicality due to the respect that, unfortunately, the deputy sheriff served the notice to quit on the last day of January when I had instructed them to hopefully try to get it done so that there would be, in fact, be a 30-day period, given the fact that the following month was February, even despite being a leap year and had 29 days. There was only 29 technical days after she was served, so her counsel was able to get that original attempt to evict her dismissed. Nevertheless, after the service of the notice to quit, it wasn't until, I believe, March, if memory serves me, that the tenant contacted this board about these alleged violations of the health code. From what I understand from my client in conversations with her, that there had never, prior to the notice to quit, ever been any complaints about the conditions at the property made by the tenant. Yet, despite that, my client has tried diligently to have these repairs properly addressed. And again, I don't have the laundry list of what they were initially in front of me, but from what I do understand, a large portion of them have been completed. The one major issue here is that there is this issue with the deck. Now, I can also submit to the board that there is now a second eviction proceeding that is now currently in process. We did serve her with a subsequent notice to quit, and now there is a further summary process action that is pending in the Southeastern Division of the Housing Court. There is a next scheduled date later this month to try to determine what, if any, agreement we might be able to come to, or if we're going to ultimately have to go to trial over this tenancy issue. The problem that my client seems to be having is twofold. Number one, the other day I did submit to Attorney Riley, and I did also copy the health department, Mr. Wills, I believe it is, or Ms. Shea. Is that the, oh, this is Ms. Shea right here. I did forward to them, and I copied Attorney Riley, because I did receive most recently a correspondence from Attorney Riley, which was requesting two things. One, to, quote, secure a board across the door and stairwell to the deck. And secondly, there was a request for a plan for the basement door and schedule for the HVAC company to finish the work. I forwarded that message to my client. She immediately contacted a vendor, a same contractor that she uses all the time at this property, who made attempts to contact the tenant to go over there and at least address the secure a board across the door and stairwell to the deck. And I did submit correspondence between this contractor and the tenant, wherein just last week he tried to make attempts to say, this is the time, days and times that I would like to go over there. I don't even have to go inside the house. I can do this from the exterior. And there were back and forth wherein the tenant refused to allow him to come over there. In fact, even saying to the effect that if you come here, I'll call the police. Okay? So the other issue as it relates to the deck, to be able to completely get that deck up to code, to tear it down and to rebuild it and however what would be approved by the board, my client is kind of stuck in a catch-22 here, because ever since the first notice to quit was served on the tenant, she has not paid a dime in any use and occupancy. So my client is not getting any income from this property, and she cannot afford to have the complete deck replaced. From what I understand, is going to cost somewhere in the range of about $20,000. She just doesn't have it. And without the rent, she can't get it done. So that's where we stand in terms of the deck. In terms of the HVAC, from what I understand, the most recent conversation that I had with my client was on Monday, in which she had told me that she had tried to contact her HVAC vendor to try to make an appointment, and that the HVAC vendor unfortunately was not able to get in touch with her. I have not heard from her since then, because my client's primary residence is in Central Florida. And as you, I'm sure well know right now, they are in the midst of a very severe hurricane. Mm-hmm. So I don't know this for a fact, but I just have to suppose that my client probably doesn't have any power and cannot get in contact with anybody since Monday. And since Monday, she had not heard back from the HVAC person to try to see about any arrangements to get over to the property to address what needs to be addressed in that respect. However, what my client did tell me was that this HVAC issue could have and should have been addressed a long time ago, but for the fact that the same HVAC vendor had previously tried to make appointments to go over to the property, and the tenant said, no, those aren't good days, I'll get back to you to reschedule, and never got back to them to reschedule. And they would try again, and it would just be the same response. That's not good, I'll get back, I'll reschedule. The last time evidently was in August that this happened, and from then, I honestly, I can't really tell you what happened since then. But since my initial conversation with Attorney Riley in August, when I explained to him the background and the eviction proceeding and all of that, that was still ongoing, Attorney Riley said, all right, well, let's see maybe what happens with the eviction proceeding and how that plays out. And so perhaps maybe that's why there haven't been more diligent efforts as far as the HVAC is concerned. But I can tell you that there have been times where my client had a vendor ready, willing, and able to go over there and address these situations and was rebuffed and was not allowed to go back or hasn't been back. And from what I do understand, when Ms. Hoffman is hopefully able to communicate with me again, that she told me that the HVAC vendor does have written documentation of these prior attempts last summer, that they tried to go over there and were not allowed.
Okay. Any questions from anybody for this, for
Yeah,
Mr.
I-
Rivera? All right. Thank you.
question.
Go ahead, Barbara.
And maybe this is a legal question. So if access is the problem on getting things fixed, I thought you could give tenants like 24 hour, like notice before you entered, like with a certified letter saying we're going to enter the property, on this day, like solve the problem of getting the repairs done? Because obviously, like, somebody needs to go in to make repairs, or somebody needs to go over there to go on the property, but I thought as an owner you could give, I mean, I don't know, I haven't rented in a long time, but it's like, can you, normally they said if you give you 24-hour notice or you tell me you're coming in, they get to go in.
There is no lease in this situation, so she is a tenant at will.
Oh, so there's, you don't have anything in writing.
But nevertheless.
We've asked you to hold off, please.
But nevertheless, okay, typically, yes, as long as there is enough advance notice,
Yeah.
which we have tried, in this most recent addressing Mr. Riley's email to me from last week, we immediately got in touch with the vendor about the deck, okay, or at least the boarding, concerning the deck.
Right.
And the effort was made. The vendor contacted the tenant and said, are these days good to come over to do this? I don't even have to come inside. And I can board this, whatever it is, okay? And she flat out said, no, you will not come over here. If you come over here, I'll call the police. And now it's gotten to the point where the vendor, okay, who's had multiple dealings with the tenant in the past, none of which have been particularly cordial, has now basically said, I am not going over there until the tenant is gone. I don't want to go over there until the tenant is gone, because she's just evidently giving me nothing but headaches, okay? Can't speak for the HVAC vendor. I'm still waiting to hear about when that possibly, hopefully, can get done. But from what I understand, same situation. That there were attempts made, and there's only so much that we can do if the tenant will not allow them in the property, even with proper notice.
Okay, any other questions?
I'm afraid to say anything.
Okay. Margaret? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Julie? Please
So
state
the
your name.
HVAC
Please state your name for the record.
Julie Law. So as you all have heard before, I have paid my rent up until March in full. His client does not know how to keep track. I have all track. It has been entered legally into the courts. He has no idea. Clearly, he has a copy of everything that's been entered in the court. Clearly, he is a liar. It has also been documented that I told this landlord the issues starting in December of the problems with the mold and the ceiling falling in, which is also documented. You guys all know that this problem has started back in 2019. I have never denied anyone access other than when I had an emergency surgery in April, and that was well documented, not just with the contractors who were coming into the house, but with the BOH. The only time that I have denied and the only time that I have told a contractor no is this past Sunday when I did receive a text saying he was coming to board up the sliding glass door, in which I got in contact with a fire department chief, and he said by no means is anyone to board up a sliding glass door, in which I have a letter, if you all would like to see it. And he is in contact with the fire department here in Bourne. And yes, I have it where I said, you will not come to this house. You may have both of these. I have been in contact with the Board of Health, continuing to show them that the mold issue has not been corrected. It is increasing. These are all the photos of what is getting worse. As far, if you would like to pass these down, would you like to show these? Please pass this down also. Everything that he has said is a lie. The original eviction has been thrown out. Did they refile again? Yes, it's retaliatory. I've spoken to another, not just my current attorney, I've spoken to a second attorney out of Boston. I have full right to not pay this woman 1 red cent for making me live in the manner that she is making me live in. She has been held in violation by the board of this town many, many times. She is a slumlord, period. You people know this. You have dealt with her many, many years. I will not have this man stand here and lie upon my name. Everybody that has come into this house that has contacted me, every contractor has been let in, has been able to do the work. They have come in off hours without notification. And I have not been rude on any level. Nobody has been canceled again until I had emergency surgery. And I called them, rescheduled with them. I was contacted in August. I called. I needed to reschedule. I asked the woman's secretary to have the woman, the manager, to call me when she had a moment to reschedule. Never heard from them again. Not again. As far as the contractor who wanted to board this up, I've had such a very nice, friendly relationship with this man that he's the one that referred me to my own attorney. He's a very kind man. He's always gotten in and out of my house with no issue. So as far as that one saying that he's had problems with me, no. What I have a problem with is you wanting to board my children and myself into my house like we are animals. What I have a problem with is this Board of Health demanding, giving her a 24-hour notice to have a contractor under contract, begin work within 2 weeks, and completing work within 30 days, and his client doing nothing, as always. She is nothing but a slumlord. She's not getting a dime out of me. You people would not want to live in this house. You people would not put your children in this house. You people would not put your animals in this house. The mold continues to grow in our bedrooms. They're on our lampshades. They're on our clothes. And you think I'm going to pay his client a red cent? I will meet you in court. I will continue my lawsuit against your client, and I will win. You're not getting a cent out of me. You people have me living in a house that is going to kill my family. Look at the photos. Look what the fire chief has said. And it is backed up by the fire department of Bourne. You board up that back door. You are incinerating my family. If I have to jump from a 10 to 12-foot egress, we will die from that too. But you will not put a board against a back door. Tell your client to fix the damn deck. I have done nothing wrong to deserve any of this. And now I'm goddamn angry.
Thank you, Ms. Bob. Anybody else?
And I don't care about your hurricane. My son lost his entire home.
Ms. Ball, that's enough. Mr. Reed, go ahead. Mr. Rivera.
If the conditions are so bad, why doesn't she leave?
Why don't your client fix it? Like she's been told over 5 years ago.
You're a tenant of will.
I am not. I have an 18-month lease.
Excuse me. Call,
If you two want to go
outside
outside,
and
that's
discuss
fine.
it. Anybody, any questions? Okay. All right. All right, so we'll decide what we can do from here.
Excuse me.
Yes,
I think your attorney.
yes,
wanted to comment.
right. Mr. Bertram.
Yeah, no, thank you. I just wanted to make a couple of suggestions and,
Yeah.
and, you know, obviously there's a dispute that's within the board's jurisdiction here and a greater dispute that's maybe not in our jurisdiction.
Right.
Because we don't decide landlord-tenant issues, we decide sanitary code issues. So I think, you know, at minimum, what would be, I don't know what the board's thinking here, but one thing that may be useful is, you know, we have a landlord and a tenant. If the landlord wants to give the tenant notice of a date that these contractors can come in, and copy town staff within the next week or so and have that happen, we can do that. I mean, I think that, you know, to the extent there's disagreement about whether contractors have been denied entry in the past, that may be something we can take up in the future over fines, but I think the immediate concern is just getting somebody in there now to address the remaining work. The other observation I wanted to make is, at least in the materials that I have seen, my understanding is that the town's inspections have shown that the mold has been remediated. So in terms of what I think is before the board are the 4 issues I initially listed. If there is a new issue, then perhaps a re-inspection is necessary. But I do want to sort of keep our eyes on the ball of, you know, what our inspectors have identified has been fixed, what is still outstanding, and what maybe we may need to follow up on again.
Brian, if I may too, with that mold aspect, is the original mold that was witnessed by Dion at his inspection had been remediated. Mold will continue to grow as long as the home is exposed to excessive moisture, which is the case because the doorway in the basement that's leaking and has not been replaced is still in existence. So as long as that is happening, the house will be exposed to excess moisture and that mold will continue to grow. So more problems will happen.
So Katie, on the list of this, Katie, excuse me, Katie, on the list of these things,
Yes.
like, it looks like there's 5 things here. Like, if you had to do a priority, or maybe Brian, what do you think? Like, if there's a priority of these things, it sounds like the mold is from the basement door.
So
the
yeah,
new mold.
the door could be replaced. That's something that's not something that could take a lot of time and would help fix a problem that's going to
Right.
continue
And
to
then
continue to grow.
And then that stops the bedroom ceiling kind of thing, right?
It would stop growth if the moisture was removed.
Yeah,
yes.
and that would impact 2 of the things on the list.
Yeah.
And then even the
Yeah.
deck, sorry, Brian, did you have something? Were you gonna say something? I didn't know. And then the deck.
I was going to agree with you.
Yeah, and then even the deck, according to our building codes, because this letter is from Michigan,
Yes.
you know, so according to our building codes,
And I did
it's
s-
not stopping an egress because they have another egress. So it's our building codes that have to be
And obviously,
followed.
having an egress boarded up is not ideal.
Right,
It's not what we want
but
to
at
do.
least
It's
it's-
supposed to be a temporary fix to prevent injury.
Right,
We obviously would prefer that the deck was replaced as soon as possible.
right.
That's the goal. I did speak with our fire department, Scott LaBelle, and he was going to refer it up to the deputy chief and the chief. And they said that they could also issue their own citation for the deck as well, if that was going to help us. So
Yeah, I mean, I like Brian's idea about, you know, I don't know if, you know, we have 2 parties here, Brian, the attorney representing the landlord and the tenant. You know, could we agree on a date that, you know, somebody will go do the basement door? Like, can we do that today? I don't know if he's authorized to, you know, agree to a date, but you're right, we gotta, I mean, it's hard to, nobody can complain if people aren't, you know, you have to let people in or let people on the property. So it's like, is that something we can try now? I don't know if attorneys are allowed to do that, commit on their, you know, tentatively commit on a date. I don't know.
I could speak on behalf of my client that we want to get these repairs done as soon as possible. With the exception of, as I stated before.
Yeah, we know the other deck.
The complete reconstruction of the deck, that needs more time. My
Yeah.
client just doesn't have the financial ability to do that.
Yeah.
But from the board's recommendation, if just putting up this temporary fix of this board, as was described to me by Attorney Riley, we were willing to do that last week. And as far as the basement door and getting inside to do the HVAC, you tell us and we'll try to get it done tomorrow. I have the authority
Okay,
to
so,
allow any and all fix. We want this done as soon as possible.
so Brian, what do you think about that? Like, your idea was good. We have all the parties here. So should we,
We have all the parties here, so I guess all we don't have is a contractor here to tell us they're available on such and such a
but even
date.
if you,
But
yeah,
if, I mean, I would say, look, you know, the landlord, I'm just thinking about this out loud, but if the landlord wants to provide a date and a time in writing that I don't know if it's the same contractor or two different contractors, right? We have one for the basement door and then one for the HVAC. Those seem to be the two sort of really important items right now. Wants to provide dates that the contractors can get there to the tenant in writing with the CC to Caitlin, so that the town has a record of it. And then the tenant wants to get back to them. We'll know. I mean, either the tenant will agree or not, but we'll have a record then that the landlord offered to have people on site on such a date, and hopefully the tenant will allow them there. We'll have a record of that, and then we can go on from that. I would say, you know, we could order that they do that within the next, you know, by the end of the week, maybe mid next week, just given the hurricane conditions in Florida. Although if the lawyer can line that up himself, maybe sooner. But that would put it on a cycle of if there's a failure to do that, then it can come back to the board at its next meeting, and we can, you know, take more significant action at that point. But it would basically tie this up where there's one last opportunity for the landlord to propose dates, for the tenant to allow those folks to come on site. And I would just emphasize it would be good if the order included, you know, the landlord CCs the town, and then the tenant should CC the town staff as well. That way we can sort of see it in real time, and we're not back here the next time sort of listening to both sides. And, you know, it's not an easy thing, you know, to listen to both sides and know sort of where the truth lies. And, you know, oftentimes there are good faith, reasonable perspectives on both ends. People may have different opinions, so being involved in that, I think, would be very helpful to us as well.
Thank you, Brian. Paul?
You guys
Go to the podium, please.
You guys are not addressing the fact that this also originated with water pouring out of my ceiling with mold in the rafters, and with the mold pros stating that they could not see how far back the mold goes because she has so much junk crammed up in there. There is clearly mold that has not been addressed in the ceilings. It has been told to the board that there is water from the roof getting in between the gutters and the roof down into the walls. You see it in the closets. It's on our clothes. It's all over my furniture. My entire home will have to be thrown away. You guys are not even addressing a very large, major health issue here. You're just so focused on this back deck, which is 100% condemned. You can see in the photos, it's on lampshades that are next to our beds. It's on our clothes. This is a part of the original violations from March, and you guys are ignoring this fact. You are blatantly ignoring it, and this goes back to 2019. You've already addressed this with this landlord 5.5 years ago. Why are you so focused on minute things? I have not stopped anyone from getting into this house other than my emergency surgery. And the same contractors I called right away, they came in and did half the work, never called to come finish it. They've never come back. And it's not me doing anything against anyone. So that the lies with that one, leave that there.
Okay. It's good.
Okay?
Can I-
But you're missing a huge point. And yes, the chief's letter is from Michigan, but he, again, and I'll state it again, is working with the Bourne Fire Department. So I would love that the chief here in Bourne come write his letter from the town of Bourne. That would be fabulous. Then I'll have 2 fire chiefs with the same letter. I encourage that.
Okay, so just one more question about the mold, right? So didn't you say at the previous meeting that mold pros had come in already and done some work?
They did some work,
Yeah.
but they also stated they could not see how far back the mold went.
Okay, so
So they
maybe there
couldn't
needs to
say
be-
that it was completely cleaned up and done.
So maybe there
Clearly,
needs,
it's not.
maybe
because
there needs to be
this is-
further investigation on that. So,
Yes, this has grown and gotten 1,000 times worse since they've been in my home. It's on the furniture. It's in the photos. And if I
Yeah.
could, I would move. I can't lie. It's right there.
all right, thank you. All right. Anything else?
Someone making a motion. Are we making make a motion.
So,
I'm happy to make a motion if you want. You know,
go ahead.
I don't know,
Excuse me.
Yes, Dustin.
I'd like to make one request. If this comes back before this board, can Dion please be present at the...
He's here.
He's on,
He's
Oh,
on
he's
Zoom.
on Zoom?
yeah.
Yeah, see, because he's the only one who's been there.
I did a re-inspection with him there. He was the one who did the original inspection.
Correct. And where this has been going on so many years,
Nobody in our office has worked here during the last complaint.
I'm
So
not-
none of us saw the house at that point, unfortunately.
right. And I believe we had a thing from the building department a couple meetings ago, that if a window is over X amount of cubic inches, it's considered a exit.
Yes, he deems that the back window in the bedroom was an egress.
It was at the
During that
time
code.
that the home was built,
Yes.
1977
Right.
or
Yeah,
whatever
the
it was.
current code might not
Correct.
consider it, but.
Right.
So that's one of the problems, but no, I totally agree with the elevation of that back door at the bottom of it and the water coming in from puddling and rain coming down, it should be repaired. I'd love to say something, but I don't think legally we can. And with that, I'd really like our town lawyer to advise us of what we can do, or what is our responsibility as a board from the board. Because the only thing I heard from the past meetings was that door at the deck. And this was a thing from the building department, that it be secured, and that would be okay. Now, we're talking totally different things.
Yeah, that was my understanding too. I've been going off of the building commissioner's opinion that, even without the slider on the deck, under the building code as it was then written when the house was constructed, the house would still have sufficient means of egress. And so, securing the deck would not drop the house below the necessary means of egress under the building code at that time. And we were therefore gonna secure it for safety conditions. I know that Caitlin had a conversation with the fire department. I can have one with them too, but typically when it comes to code compliance, we look to our building inspector because Board of Health has many areas of expertise, but when it comes to code compliance, that's the building commissioner. If we need to change tack on that, I suppose we can, but even if we were to try to enforce against that, if we went to court, the court's gonna have similar problems that we were gonna have, which is, at the end of the day, you can order something, but if the financial means aren't there to do it, it's not likely to happen anytime soon. So, I think that in terms of dealing with that deck, securing it right now is the best option, and that's why we really tried to get them to do it. I think the other, in terms of what our responsibilities are to try to address and correct the sanitary code violations as they may arise. Again, there are clearly landlord-tenant disputes that go beyond that we can't correct. But what we can do is and I think it was fairly well received, is to set a very short time frame in which the landlord should supply dates when professionals can get out there to fix them, in particular the basement door, which seems to be the root cause for the mold issues, and for somebody to get out there to address the HVAC. It sounds like the board may also wish to have a re-inspection of the premises, whether it's by town staff or just having a contractor go out there if the mold is again becoming a problem. It was remediated in the past. I certainly don't know, and I don't think anyone knows. The tenant has apparently observed it, but none of us know for sure one way or another whether it's there. And so the process would be is that we would get it inspected, and if it's indeed the case, then that needs to be remediated too. But it sounds like it's going to be like flowers in the spring. If we don't address the basement door and some of the other issues, then you're gonna remediate the mold and it's just gonna come back. So we really need to get in on those two things. And if, we don't, we go to court, but there's not a button that we push where there's sort of town contractors who go in and fix it tomorrow. And so while it may feel frustrating to sort of issue an order one more time to get somebody in there, the reason I suggested it is because if it works, it fixes the problems faster than going to court and trying to get a court order and having a judge frankly have to struggle with the same difficulties, which is, I'm gonna issue an order and then you didn't do it and now what do I do with it? I'm not saying we don't do that. I'm just saying that even if we decide to do that, I do think that a simultaneous track of trying to address this ourselves hopefully puts the tenant in a better situation more quickly than just sort of, saying, let the lawyers handle it. I'm not saying I won't handle it with Caitlin if we go the other track, but, just sending something to court doesn't necessarily, the court's not fixing it. It's enforcement, but it's still a longer track.
And Brian, do you recommend, do you recommend that a Board of Health member also go for the site when they're on site?
The mold.
Well, like if Dean's going or,
There's
something?
nothing wrong with that. I would just caution that if a Board of Health member does, that their observations should not be shared with the rest of the board outside of a board meeting.
Yeah.
We don't want an open meeting law violation. Because of that. But it may be helpful to have the board members' eyes on it too. But certainly, if there's like a reinspection for mold, I think it would be helpful at minimum to
Oh, yeah,
have
Dean's
town
on the
staff
phone,
there.
right? Yeah. Thanks, Brian. I forgot
Okay.
Dean is on the phone.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
at least have a staff member present.
yeah. And
Okay,
then-
Ms. Ball had something else to say.
I have a few questions. Where this woman has been given numerous chances by the Board of Health to fix these problems, and she has ignored, disregarded, and has done nothing for months on end. How much longer are you guys going to do this? The last time I was in front of you people, you were going to make the house uninhabitable. And yet, here we are, still, and it's October. She was given 24 hours to respond, 2 weeks to comply, 30 days to finish. And yet, she did nothing. And I've heard nothing from you people. So how much longer are we going to drag our feet through this? This started in March. I told her in December. How much more?
So we're trying to address it now with you, with the tenant. So that's what we would like to be, is work collaboratively, work together. And hopefully, if we do a motion that, he provides dates, you'll let somebody, that work with you.
I've always
that work
let them
with-
in. Let's be
Again,
fair.
I'm just speaking out loud. I haven't been privy to every single conversation you have. None of us have.
So I'm going to readdress my question. On July 29th, as the letter states, she was given 24 hours to respond, to have a contractor under contract, 2 weeks for that contractor to begin work, and 30 days to finish the work. And if she, one, did not respond within the 24 hours, the home was going to be made uninhabitable. You guys saw the house with your own eyes. She was non-compliant from the start. And if Mr. Wills would answer that, he will back up that she was not responding to emails, not responding to phone calls, not responding to any warnings, not responding to anything. So per this question, again, where you've already done this dance with her, how many more times are you going to do this?
This will be the last opportunity for her to comply
I don't
before this
understand why
goes to
she's
court.
given another opportunity.
Because there have been some disagreements between both of you, and we've pushed it up to the ladder to the attorneys. Well, we need to nail down specific hard dates by which this work will be completed. You need to cooperate, she needs to cooperate, and if it's not done by then it goes to court, and guess what? Then it gets dragged out through the court system. We don't want that. We want the best possible outcome for you,
I
Julie.
understand, Mr. Collette, but
Yeah.
you're aware of what this woman has
I-
done in
I'm-
2019.
we're
You're
perfectly.
quite aware.
Well, yes, but that was
This is
a
the
long time
same
ago.
thing.
Right, and there are also very significant fines here that she has accrued that you know, could come into play if this doesn't all work out. We're trying to find the best possible resolution for both sides. Both people need to play here. You know, so everybody has to put down your swords, agree on a couple of dates where you can have people come in, get it done. It's a short window of time. We don't have time for all this, to have this drag on. We want the best outcome for you.
And I have
Okay.
let people into the home. The only thing I
Okay.
have stopped is the boarding up of a back door, and I have 2 fire chiefs that have said, no
Understood.
way.
Understood, but we need to get this stuff done. So
I
let's,
understand.
if we can propose some dates by which this work will be completed, planned and completed, and if it's not, then we washing our hands of it, it's probably going to court. And then that's a protracted
That's gonna take-
process
yeah.
and ugly and expensive for everybody. So we don't want to have to do that. So let's give it one more opportunity here. Let's take a collective deep breath, and we'll try to get this thing done. Mr. Rivera, do we have your best word on this? And I know that, we'll hope that Ms. Hoffman and Ms. Ball can also join in, and we'll get this taken care of.
I guess just for clarity, do you want to go back over there?
Yes, please.
Just for clarification, in terms of dates for the work to be performed and completed by, are we discussing just the issues that were sent to me by Attorney Riley in his message of October the 2nd, wherein he said that there needed to be this, quote, secure a board across the door and the stairwell to the deck, and the plan for the basement door and a schedule for the HVAC company to finish the work. Is that what we're addressing?
Yep.
That
Go ahead, Trustee.
that cellar door. That's the main issue,
Okay.
because if that is where the mold is coming in, water coming in and creating mold, that has to be fixed, because all the other work won't matter if the mold keeps coming in.
Fair enough. So
Okay.
would that be a date then for the replacement of this basement door?
Well, yes, we have,
Whatever's needed.
yeah, and there's some other issues here too, though. But so instead of just doing piecework,
Okay.
I think there are other things that have been pointed out here that that have been part of this whole discussion from the beginning. The bedroom ceiling, the possibility that the mold was not completely remediated back in May when the mold pros came, given the evidence shown on these photos that she provided. So we want assurance from mold remediation professionals that they've been able to examine the whole house, assess whether or not more work needs to be done, and to have that done so that we don't come back here in 6 months with the same problem, right? Want to make sure that, because apparently there's considerable clutter in the attic that prevented them from exploring further during their efforts there in May. And they weren't able to access much of the attic to see if there was an extensive problem up there, and it appears that there might be. So let's get it done. Make sure that everything is completely done to the satisfaction of us, the property owner, and the tenant, and to make sure that, so that there are no further problems down the road. We don't want to have to repeat this, right?
Fair enough.
Look through this. And then basement door, right, the HVAC duct work, wall seals, and of course, then the deck, we know we need to make a plan about that. Okay? And decide how we're going to, how that's going to be resolved. Obviously, it needs to be replaced, but, it's with the stiff opposition from the tenant about having the board placed across the door. So, I mean, that's something that we need to decide on too, and, yeah.
Excuse me, Bob?
Yes, Dusty.
In the motion, can it be stated, and Katie will have to interfere anyway, I'd like to see that when a contractor has made contact with the homeowner in Florida, whatever, that he's been given the go-ahead. Just call and say, this date, I'm going in. Okay, the other thing, when it's completed, will he please call the Board of Health? So we have a record from start to finish, not everybody coming in here with different dates.
Certainly.
It would be greatly appreciated if you're in favor of doing that.
So, there's a lot going on. We have a lot of he said, she said in the calling.
This is what I'm trying to.
So maybe, things are in
Get rid-
text. So, I don't know, Brian, do you think, perhaps, we reconvene with you, like, I hate to make a motion right now because we'll be leaving perhaps leaving something out that could be a material factor. We have what you wrote down about the 5 different things, but even shouldn't everything be in writing and emailed versus, calling, because somebody will say they called or they left,
I'd be more than happy to
Yeah,
have.
I mean, I would like to come out of this meeting with at least some kind of an order, even if we need to supplement it later.
Okay,
So from what I'm hearing, the basement door, the HVAC, and a mold inspection are sort of the 3 big
Okay.
ones. And maybe those are the 3 that we say you need to provide the tenant dates that the professionals will be on site, and you need to provide those dates within the next week. And when you provide those dates, you need to have the professionals or your council copy the town's health department so that they have a record of that. And, assuming that's done, then we know they're gonna be out there on those dates. And then once that work is complete, then those professionals need to confirm that the work is complete with the health department. For the HVAC and the basement door, I suspect that'll be done pretty quickly. The only reason I don't want to put an end date on the mold is that I just don't know how extensive those issues are, and I think the point is the inspection would better inform us of sort of where that lies at this point. Whether it's significant, whether it's not.
yeah,
And then I know there are some other lingering issues, but, to your point, Barbara, if we're worried about leaving things out, maybe we just focus on those 3 right now, because we really want to make those major problems go away.
right,
I mean, the only other thing we could do is if it's really that bad, we can, the board could vote that it's not fit for human habitation, but I'm not sure that solves at least the tenant's problem, because then she can't live there.
right.
And that's a problem too, so.
And then even
And I guess,
yeah,
I was gonna say, the other just sort of note I would make on this too, that I think the chair mentioned is that there have been fines assessed against this property, and this discussion is in no way, sort of saying we won't pursue those fines in the future. I think that's a future discussion for the board. It's just assessing fines is a tool to try to get compliance, but they haven't worked, and so what we're worried about right now is finding a path to get it fixed.
and then, because even on the mold remediation, I think from what I hear from, even reading the notes and things like that, there was a lot of stuff in the attic, so that has to be, that will have to be, you'll have to hire somebody to probably move that, remove that or something. to get
I think that's a major issue that we
Yeah.
need to consider right now, because the mold issue may not be just the basement door.
Right.
As
Yeah.
Julie's saying, it's that roof, and,
That's what I'm
and if we
saying, we
don't
need
get in there, and now, and what kind of, how do we,
a full and thorough, well,
so I'd like
we
to get
could
that stuff out of there?
require-
Or
yeah.
can they just have the people have gone, well, we can't really assess this because we can't get over there. So whose responsibility is it to get that stuff out of the way? If that company, the mold remediation company, if they're given the job to do it, how far can they legally go to get in there to assess it?
They need to be able to access everywhere that they need to.
So that's something I
up in
think
the
we need
attic,
to
and if there's
resolve
a lot
too
of clutter
tonight,
there, then that
as a
stuff
part
needs
of
to be removed.
A very important priority, because mold is very important.
No, absolutely, because this was already done in May, now all of a sudden, and it's already a problem again.
I would be happy to have further conversations with Attorney Bertram or Attorney Riley about establishing these deadlines. I guess the one question that I do have, if we are talking about the 3 major issues being the replacement of the basement door, and completing the HVAC work that needs to be done.
And
Apparently, there would have to be, I guess, a further inspection of the attic to determine whether or not there's any further mold. So that may have to
That's what
wait
it is,
until
yeah.
the inspection, and we get the results of the inspection.
There was significant mold in the attic during inspection back in April and then, or May. And then May, there was a remediation effort, but there was a lot of clutter in the attic, and apparently the mold removal company could not complete what they needed to do.
Okay.
So it has now become a problem again in the home. We have mold, you know, the photos that Julie shared show mold all over the furniture and lamps and so forth. So my point is that if that's not taken care of now, then it's just, if it's only partially taken care of now, again, in a few months, it's gonna be back, you know? or-
Understood. So then I would just, again, I'd be happy to continue my conversation with the town council. With respect to that mold issue, I guess we would need a little bit more time to be able to try to find somebody to get out there, maybe remove whatever. I personally have not been to the property.
I think the board needs to determine the dates, set the dates, and also
That's fair.
to, at very least, to set a date for everything, these things that need to be completed, and it's including an inspection of the mold problem. They may not be able to remove it, it's gonna probably take them a day to do that.
Okay.
But if they can go do an inspection and see what they have, you know, what the enormity of the job is, but they're gonna need, everything else is gonna have to be removed from that attic in
Okay.
order for them to be able to do that.
And just finally, what about this issue of this quote-unquote temporary fix of putting this board, you know, which seems to be, you know, still a contentious issue with the tenant where she just will not allow it?
So to Mr. Bertram's point, Attorney Bertram's, we're gonna focus on the three things first.
Right.
Yeah, there's other research, you know, Katie's gonna follow up with the fire department, but we're gonna focus on
Okay.
three things.
All right.
Fair enough? So,
Julie, in the basement, do you still have that dehumidifier?
Yes,
Is that the one that has to drain outside?
that is correct.
Alright,
That
so-
the contractor said to not use.
Yes, so-
Until the landlord to replace.
Yeah, so if they're gonna replace the door, they'll need a different type of dehumidifier that does not need to have a hose that goes through the door.
That is
Because that is breaking the seal of the door,
That is
so
correct.
we would need that to be replaced as well.
That is.
Is there a washer and dryer down there, or a slop sink or something?
It is a washer and dryer.
Washer and dryer.
Oh, so they can-
She
they
was told that it needs to be put, like, built into the wall.
Mhm.
So the drainage needs to go through the sidewall.
Yeah.
It can't go underneath
The door.
the mold remediation company, they do have units like that, you know, they're
Correct. And they did tell her.
very powerful, yeah.
They told her, and the contractor told her, and the HVAC people told her to all do that, and she refused.
This is why we're trying to get, for this last chance, everything on record. Because he said, she said, this, it's crazy.
Yeah, we just can't keep going like this. We want the best possible outcome for everybody. You know, we understand, we know your situation and, you know, but everybody has to, you know, cooperate.
Can't I say this?
Okay, all right, all right. Did you want to give it a whirl?
Sure. With backing from council, I will make a motion that the landlord and the tenant worked, well, it's actually a motion for the landlord, but that within the next week, 10 days, by October 18th, maybe?
Next Friday.
Next Friday is the 18th, that they, in writing, I would say via email. Julie, do you have email?
I do.
So via email to Julie, council, and the Board of Health, that they provide dates, and I would probably provide 2 dates to Julie that she can choose from for somebody to come in and fix the basement door. 2 dates for somebody to come in,
Fix or replace?
excuse me, I'm making a motion, so please don't, I think they're replacing the door. The basement door, so that it's sealed and weather tight, no leaking, address the, fix the HVAC ductwork. The third thing is to have a mold remediation company come in and assess the situation, hire somebody to clean the attic so that when the mold remediation company comes, they can actually do a thorough job. And then the dehumidifier, purchase a new dehumidifier that, and Katie, what, duct through the wall, is that what it is? It just doesn't drain outside. Like my dehumidifier drains, where my old, into
Yeah,
where,
there's ones that have their own
yeah.
bucket that you can then dump
Yeah.
into a slop sink and stuff like
Yeah.
that too. So there's multiple
So
options.
just get a dehumidifier that doesn't have to be, out to, hosed out to the outside. So we're gonna address those 3 things. I mean, the dehumidifier addresses the mold. So I guess by next Friday, which means you're gonna, there's a lot of things to coordinate, which is the basement door, the HVAC, the mold pros or whoever you're having come back, and the dehumidifier. And then sorry,
Hold on, do you want to finish the motion?
Yes.
And then we can amend it.
I'm sorry.
yeah,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, that would be my motion.
Okay, all right, so,
We,
And then I may amend it, depending on.
no.
Wait, so basically, since we're making a motion, we have to talk about it, and
Yeah.
no public comment until we
further
finish our
discussion,
motion.
right?
You
On
know.
the motion?
On the discussion
Yeah.
on the motion?
Discussion on the motion.
Okay. We don't know if she's got even computer access with the conditions.
No,
around
he's
it.
authorized, it's him. He's authorized on her behalf.
You're authorized
Yes, he
to
just said he's
contact
authorized.
and hire and everything?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's authorized.
Thank God.
Okay.
And then and then the other thing too is people need to provide their email to.
I believe I have everyone's email.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's authorized to do it. That's that's like the
That'll
good
save
thing
a
about
lot
Brian's
of time.
recommendation.
And keep a better record.
Brian, do you have any comments on anything I need to amend on the motion?
No, I mean, I think this is fine. If for some reason the hurricane conditions persist and, they truly have a problem contacting his client, he can reach out to us and we can always, put it back on for the board. I think it's better to start with an order that says this is what you're supposed to do, and then if there's a problem, we can address it against that. But, from our perspective, it's good to have an order, this is what you're supposed to do, so we know what's happening. And I think it benefits the landlord too, because then the expectation is clear and there's no guessing on their part either. I mean,
Yeah.
and then if they do it, they've done it. They have a documented compliance. So, that would be mine. So I think it's a good motion. I think I think we all need to keep in mind that someone may go out to fix the door and discover that something else needs to be done or something like that. And so it's a starting point, but we may end up having to do something else. There may be more work. We don't know.
Yeah, and then, sorry, before I close the motion
Yeah.
for a second, what about, sending dates, but obviously we don't want the dates to be in December. We want the remediation to be done when it's wet, not frozen. It is getting colder, so should the dates of service be somehow in the next, by November 1st? I mean, people will come out.
Yeah.
People want work. Give them, what do you think, Brian?
I mean, I don't know what the service professionals are at this point. We could always say give them 2 weeks, and then if for some reason you can't get a professional out there in 2 weeks, we can, that can be reported back to the board, and then the board
Okay.
can go from there.
Perfect. All
But,
right.
the longer you extend it out, the more time
Right.
there is, and I would like to get this addressed.
Okay, so then I would like to amend my motion to also include that the service providers provide dates, within the time period of from now. I mean, because you could have this all done, you could, rally and have all the dates to everybody sooner than the 18th. but within 2 weeks of the date, you notify the board, like for a service provider to come. So you would have already contacted service providers by the time you email the dates to people, but ideally, we'd like those dates to be before November 1st for the service providers. Is that?
For service to be completed by the first.
Yes,
Yeah.
November 1st, for service to be completed.
Okay. And that was just the one thing that I wanted to clarify. So the 10/18 date is the deadline for which to provide dates,
To schedule.
to schedule.
Yes.
And then the work should be completed by
Completed.
the end of this month.
Right. And if they, if they want to do it before the 18th,
Oh, of
Right.
course,
Yeah.
without
Right.
question.
Yeah.
But we are focusing just strictly on the basement door, the HVAC issue, and the mold.
The mold remediation and the
And dehumidifier.
in the dehumidifier.
And the dehumidifier.
Which is in conjunction, which means you may also have to, as you're thinking about the mold remediation, you haven't been to the property, getting somebody to, whether Mold Pro does it or whoever you hire, get rid of the clutter in the attic, because that's probably what's causing more damage. I haven't been there, but, I would think that's what's causing more issues for your client.
Okay.
So,
okay.
wait,
so-
so, first of all, I don't think public can talk
No.
right now. Wait, is Brian saying something?
I don't think so.
Oh, so, I think that's my motion. That's my motion.
Any further discussion on the motion?
No.
No?
Want to second
Need
it?
a second.
Second.
Margaret?
Aye.
Bob? Aye.
Should we take a roll call vote?
Right, Barbara?
Yes, aye.
Aye. Okay.
So Caitlin, did you guys get all that?
Yes, so to confirm, the motion included by October 18th to have the homeowner or her representation give an email to Board of Health staff and the tenant, 2 dates for each set of work there,
And
and town council, for work that will be completed by November 1st, and that includes the HVAC work, replacement of the door to be weather tight and sealed, replacement of the dehumidifier. And did you want a contract for the mold issue and the people to work out at the attic?
I think it's important that we get the contract for the mold.
Contract by the 18th or contract by the November 1st?
Well, once you hire people, it'd be nice to know who you're hiring, obviously, we'd like to know who they're hiring and their contact information too.
I would say, contract by the 18th, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
because the work needs to be done by the
So
1st.
you're already
Yeah.
contacted those people, okay.
Right, and then, the other thing too is, this isn't in the motion, but obviously, people work and have to take time off from work. It'd be nice if you could, the dates, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 things to get done. I don't know who does the dehumidifier, but let's just say there's 3 contractors. It'd be nice if people could do things on the same day, so that way it's less disruptive to the tenant. So if she has to be home for a couple hours, or whatever it's gonna take, or even a day, it's less disruptive. So that's all, just try and schedule people
To
on
the
the
best
same
of our
day.
ability, we'll try to make that
Yeah,
happen,
no,
for sure.
yes, that's why I didn't, again, you can't control 3 different contractors, but it's just try and just be conscious of that.
While we're here, could I just ask Ms. Baugh a quick question?
Sure.
Yeah,
Are you still being represented by Attorney Alva? Okay, so would it be sufficient that any correspondence go to him on your behalf?
You could send it to me too.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
This is just the beginning, right? So you guys are still going to address the fully condemned deck at a later time, correct?
Yeah,
Yes,
these are the more
yes.
pressing issues at the moment.
Yeah.
so
Just
it's-
wanted to be clear. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Okay, one thing. That humidifier should be online soon as the remediation
Right. Yeah,
company is
everything
done.
has to be
Because if
done.
not, you're
Yes.
working
It's
backwards.
it should be a part of the same project.
yeah, it's all part of the
Correct.
November 1st thing, and probably
Yeah.
removing, if there's stuff in the attic that's wet or something, probably removing that will make a big difference too.
Right.
Yeah.
And we haven't been there, I don't know what the attic looks like, I
Right.
don't know if Dion's seen it.
But that was apparently an issue last time, that they
Yeah.
couldn't investigate the whole attic, to see. Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so hopefully we can get all this done within the time frame put forth, and we'll go forward from there.
if you have any questions, reach out to staff on what
Certainly.
needs to be done, or, Attorney Bertram, and hopefully everybody will work together. It sounds like, we're making progress towards that, so, like I said, just stay in touch with, Health Department staff. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, so I'll write a full letter about what the board's decision was and send it to everyone.
Send it to everyone.
Yep.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, Julie.
Need like a quick break to get some water or something?
No, I'll be all right. I think we're almost done.
There we are. Okay. All right, fourth agenda item is the public comment on non-agenda items. Seeing nobody in the audience, is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment on anything?
I'm not seeing anyone,
Okay,
no.
hearing none. Item number 5, Health Agents Report.
I have nothing new for you today.
Okay, thank you. Item number 6, comments from the board in regard to future agenda items.
I have something. So the ice swim, Dan Barrett and Phil Goddard would like to come before us. They have to go through the current year 25, the RRC policy. Technically, it's approved by the Select Board, the Recycling Center policy for the calendar year 2025, but they have to come before us first. So they'd like to do that at our next meeting on the 23rd. And the other thing that we have to go over that day is the emergency contact protocol.
Barbara,
It's
excuse
like
me,
the call
I couldn't-
list.
I couldn't understand what you said.
Oh, sorry, because I'm
Who's
so
coming-
thirsty
who's
right now.
coming?
It's Dan Barrett and Phil Goddard from the
Ice swim.
Ice Swim, the Integrated Solid Waste
Okay.
Management Center. So basically, every year, they have to come before us for their recycling policy. You know, the little the brochure that has what the fee is, what they take, all that. So.
Come and they present that, or?
Yes, so they already have a draft, which will be shared with everybody
Okay.
ahead of time. But it has to come before us to look at, and then it goes to the Select Board for final approval. But it's every year they have to do that.
Okay.
And then the other thing is the emergency contact protocol. So it's just basically updating our contact information, and then we'll just review what the policy is, because it impacts us, like when they contact us for certain things. So he's provided me with drafts of both of those, which, Katie, I might actually come see you just about that. And then we'll just review them for our next meeting, and they'll come before us and present it. But nothing is changed from the last, from the 24 year, so. And then the emergency contact, obviously, we have new members, so we have to update that. And then the other thing, Katie, I went to, and this is something to think about, but I think you might have to talk to Stevie in the conservation. I was at the conservation meeting, and they had, they were talking, it was the Buzzards Bay Coalition, it was Dr. Rachel, and I'm gonna say her name wrong, Wisniewski Jakula, talking about the Red Brook Harbor. She was very interesting,
Yeah.
really interesting. So maybe talk to Stevie about when, because you hate to have somebody come present twice.
Yeah.
Which was actually really interesting, the room was packed. So, I don't know, I thought, and I took her card and I said, I told her I was on the Board of Health and that, maybe she could present to us. But I didn't know what she was still doing with conservation, because maybe we jointly joined something that they're doing so that she doesn't have to present twice. So that's why maybe if you could talk to Stevie about if she's coming back,
Any
or.
future presentations that they have, if we can piggyback a little bit on that.
Yeah, and Stevie probably has the slides and things like
Yeah,
that, but she
probably.
was super interesting.
Absolutely.
So those are my two things.
Okay, anybody else?
Just one thing, back to the ice swim. We gotta start thinking of plastic bags being utilized in Bourne. It's the biggest problem at the dump.
Oh,
They don't deteriorate, and plugs up the dump, but the problem of it
We
is.
have a plastic bag ban,
Yeah.
plastic bag
Well,
ban
go
bylaw.
to the market and
I
try,
know.
yeah,
So, there are-
do or die.
So the enforcement for that bylaw, so it's a town bylaw, it's not a Board of Health regulation. The enforcement is specified to be the Board of Health and the police department. So either of us who see it can enforce this bylaw. So in establishments that we permit and regulate, that we inspect, those are things that we note and we tell them. We recently did send out a letter to most of our establishments, I think it was last year, to remind them of this bylaw. And we were thinking about doing it again, going into the permitting season and just doing that. But we do see establishments that we don't permit, so we don't go in there, so we don't see it on a regular basis. So we rely on people to let us know so we can educate the people who are in those businesses about the town bylaw.
Well, like Market Basket, they give you paper
Right.
bags,
Yes.
which is very good.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go up the street to Wareham, to Walmart, whatever, what do you got? It's a no-win situation.
Fairground doesn't have a plastic bag ban bylaw.
They don't,
No.
and it's a serious thing. Go ahead.
But maybe
Tell
like
them, wrap them
compost
over your
bins.
head.
Maybe like how we do a thing for compost bins, you know, I always bring my own bags, you
Yes,
know?
mhm.
So maybe we think about that. as
But
a-
how does a
as
person, you're depending upon a person to get them to the dump? And
Oh.
put
They
them
have
in a
them. They
bin,
have,
and how many elderly and other people don't have, you know, the proper stuff to
They
get
have,
there?
You mean biodegradable
containers
bags?
to recycle plastic bags, and not just at the dump. They've had them at, we used to always look for them. They had them at Market Basket and other locations, but we could try to make sure they were more accessible, because they can be hard to find, but
No,
they're
I-
not just at the
Yeah, I've
dump.
never seen one.
I think what you're talking about, though, is how some towns mandate you have to use certain bags, like biodegradable bags. I think that's what you're talking about, like, don't use, you know, I'll say, I'm not gonna name any brand names, but don't use like a common brand name that you put in your trash and you can tie it
Oh, right,
together.
right.
I think that's what you're talking about, is the stuff that we're putting in the dump, that, in the ice swim, you know,
Yeah, you're saying bad as me.
I know. The stuff that we're putting in there isn't, yeah, like my recycling is in a biodegradable bag.
Yeah.
But some of the bags aren't biodegradable. I think that's what you're talking about, how some towns mandate you have to buy certain bags.
Many environmentalists will argue that even though the bag is labeled as biodegradable, and it may be green or it may be brown and it says it's recycled and biodegradable, it is under certain conditions, and it is extreme temperatures that will never happen at the dump.
So why don't we add that to an agenda and to talk about it? Because I don't think we can actually continue to talk about it.
It's something to think about.
I like it. I think that is a good idea, something to think about and talk about.
Future agenda item.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I created a problem. I'll bring back 141 Williams Ave if you want.
We created the problem, Dusty, we'll create a solution.
Exactly.
Okay, number 7, approve the minutes of the meeting dated September 25th, 2024. Everybody have an opportunity to review them?
I'll make a motion to
I
approve.
move to accept
Oh,
them.
okay, Barbara beat you to it. So, all right, second,
I second.
Dusty?
Yes.
Aye, Bob, aye.
Okay.
Thank you. All
I'll
right.
tell you, number 8.
Your
You're
turn,
number 8.
Barbara. Number 8, motion to adjourn?
Oh, I make a motion to adjourn.
Dusty, come on.
Second.
I know that's your favorite.
Barbara,
All in favor? Aye.
Bob, aye.
All right, I'm going to Florida. I heard the hotel.